See? All right, good morning everybody, and welcome to Coffee with the Captain. This is the second mate, Russell, behind the camera here, joined as usual by Captain Jan Miles. Morning, Captain, what are we up to?
So, today we have a rush on some cosmetics on deck. I don't know, at some point you might hear some sanding noises coming from astern. But this week we've been getting more uprig done. So if you scan over towards the head rig, we have the 3 jibs in the process of being hanked on, and unlike modern vessels, they're not hanked, or even racing vessels, they're not slipped through a guide. These have to be lashed into place. So it's a pretty tedious thing. Then if you scan upwards, you'll see that the yards have been pretty much finished up, and they're in a braced position, which is our trademark. It accentuates the rake. And then as you scan the vessel further aft, the second might be the heaviest yard, rather spar, but it might be the second heaviest, and that's the main boom. The crew got that on late yesterday, and so we've been getting a lot of things done. We'll go aboard now and take a look at some of the detail.
Great.
So dressing spars is an activity in this period of vessel. Being a period of time before wire, before machine thread, we have everything is done in lashings. So if you take a look at the main boom, there's a variety of lines that have gotten attached. This block right here is part of a outhaul system for the clew of the mainsail. It's in the beginning phases of being seized around the spar. So that, and that seizing is not just one, that'll be numerous turns in order to have the strength that is represented here, because when we haul on that, it's another block. We're putting the line onto our crank haul over there, all the way forward to here to get a mechanical advantage to stretch out the help the crew, which could be lined up. There might be 6 or 8 of them there to get it stretched out, and periodically we have to do that more than once.
So this is essentially an old school version of a winch.
Yes, though, yeah, we call it the crank haul. This is actually not period. We've cheated. This is not late 1700s, early 1800s, but they come pretty close. So as we go forward here, we can go back and look at the windlass. So this is also not period, but it's practical. It's a very powerful device.
Yeah.
It allows us to handle on one side chain, on the other side rope. But back in the day, without chain, only rope, both sides, they would have had a system that might have been a pike system, where they have a socket, they put in a bar, crank it around, and they would have numerous folks at each end of the drum. We've taken advantage of the fact that we're in a modern service as ambassador for the Maryland Star Spangled Banner story out of Baltimore. And notice how we lash the anchors. So these anchors will be in this position even when we go on our voyages in the ocean. They're relatively quickly deployable. Of course, anchoring is mostly a planned event.
Sure, one would hope anyway.
So yet to come for our getting underway is the next 2 big sails. We've got the foresail, which is a loose-footed foresail. Notice on the foremast, we've got a lot of gear that's related to the square topsail. And then we have the hoops, which is where the foresail will be, luff of the foresail will be stitched. The gaff is not yet on board. The halyards are, but the gaff is not. And then the main will come onto the boom. It will also go on hoops.
But the foresail's set up a little different from the main, right?
Yeah, it's a hoistable setup like the gaff of the main, but we leave it standing, and we have brails that go from the leech to the luff, and we can quickly bring it in. It's not the simplest thing to bring in. You have to plan on that. We have learned that trying to pull the leech of the sail forward to the luff when the sail is in the wind is very hard to do, because just like anyone flying a flag, you try to roll it up from the back end to the luff, the fly, then it's not going to be so good. So you have to bear away, get the wind behind the sail, so that it's an effective taking it in. Anybody who sees some of the videos of Pride sailing might have found one of those. So there's a lot of detail. Now, Sunday, tomorrow, is our last really dry day. We've had upwards of 7 days of dry day. So this is a rush to get the covering board, which is this red, if it point up that way, the where they're working. Then we also have our utility boat being made ready, and yet we're still to put on board the chasseur, which is over there.
And that's our other small boat.
Yeah, that's representative of a design that would not have been uncommon on a privateer.
And there's a significance to the name chasseur as well, isn't there?
Yes, certainly, yeah. So the most famous of the Baltimore privateers was a purpose-built commissioning privateer built over in Fells Point, and her name was Chasseur. And her second skipper, Boyle, was the one that took her over to Europe and put a paper blockade on England, having sufficient strength to blockade all of the UK, inlets, rivers. It was really a copy of an exaggeration of a claim by the British admiral, when they started the blockade of the East Coast, having sufficient force for all the inlets so this turned into a big brouhaha in England because you insure your cargo, and so there's a gambling of risk taking for the insurers, and these brokers who were willing to do this sat informally at a coffee house, and the name of the coffee house was Lloyd's. So Boyle caught a couple of vessels, set them free with this proclamation that said, take this to Lloyd's coffee house and get it posted. So that turned into quite a bit of anxiety of coastal vessels moving freight around England, and so they required or made requests to the Royal Navy for escort. Well, the Royal Navy was busy trying to keep Napoleon's French Navy bottled up on the continent, and so this is depleting their resources by having to come back. And that one small 100-foot vessel was going to take all this cargo. It was a rather interesting political coup, war strategy, propaganda.
But he was also quite successful in the vessels he was able to capture.
Oh yeah. His 3 or 4 month campaign out there, that time he took that paper blockade out there, came away with 17 prizes.
That's incredible.
Is a number I've heard. So anyway, we name our small boat in recognition of that famous privateer, Baltimore privateer Chasseur. The type of shape that you see there would have been relatively common back in the day. And then we take the rubber boat and we mount that on top of Chasseurs, which means by a single halyard, which is going to a crank call over here at the foremast, it is possible for the crew to very efficiently deploy the vessel to to the side, then down into the water, and vice versa, coming back. But at the moment, we leave her hanging on to the side. So, and then you, of course, have been handling, making sure the safety gear is in the right place.
Yeah, certainly. And as I think you've talked about a little bit in weeks prior, we're doing a pretty substantial update of a lot of our GMDSS equipment, our navigation equipment.
Yeah, so the second mate usually doesn't get stuck with that kind of a job. Mostly it's making sure the life vests and the various harnesses, and that we've had the fire extinguishers checked, we've had the fixed fire extinguisher systems checked. We are expecting next week the return of life rafts going on these cradles. They're full ocean service life rafts, each capable of 25 people, and that covers us for those times we might be on a day sail. We might have more than 40 people on board.
Right.
So being ocean service, though, they're equipped with surviving out in an open water, so they're a canopy type of life raft, and so those are annually serviced. We put some extra gear in there. We put in a handheld VHF, and we put in an EPIRB, a manual EPIRB.
Right.
So one of the things that we understood from the loss of the Pride is it happened so quickly. Even though the life raft's deployed, nobody managed to grab an EPIRB. And they were grabbable, but they were so busy with the sudden capsize
Right.
and flooding, so packing them in the rafts meant that if a future identical scenario were to occur, any survivors would not have to worry about trying to remember to grab an EPIRB. Now the ship has an EPIRB, so we're
Right.
with 3 EPIRBs, and that's a float away type. Come on this
Yeah,
way.
we'll go back there. Past the bumblebees on our way.
So this is the ship's
There it is.
EPIRB, and it has its own hydrostatic release system, so that if nobody grabbed it in the emergency because they didn't have time, when it submerges under the water, it'll be released, the cover will come off, the EPIRB will go up, and automatically start sending a signal. So the second mate's been making sure all those things are up to date, all the crew gear is in their proper places with the crew. But you've been also handling all this all this hardware that's related to communications, so there's a lot of wires that have to be tidied up down below, and so we've been doing that. So it's been a busy time.
Yeah, it keeps you busy. But,
just for fun to notice the so for those of you who don't go sailing on traditional boats, imagine finding one of these lines in the dark. So the crew are going to have to memorize all that.
and in addition to all the safety gear coming on, we're getting all the rigging put on. So all of a sudden there's a lot more to remember for everybody,
Right.
Bit by bit by bit.
And the cannons over there by the chasseur, they'll come aboard eventually, 2 per side.
So really it's just more and more getting the stuff that usually lives on the boat back on the boat after our
Right.
down-rigged period here.
And folks who have been listening in have heard me talk about the reason why we take it all off. When we're laying the boat up for a long period of time, we take the top hamper down. So that means the sails come off, the yards come down, the gaffs come off, the boom comes off, the topmasts come down. Sometimes the jibboom will be brought in, sometimes we leave it out there, and then everything gets covered. And by taking everything off, we have access to the hull. We also, having a cover over it, we have ventilation going on. And a wooden vessel does benefit by that exercise. And then of course, our wear and tear up aloft, yes, we can inspect by climbing aloft. We can do a lot of cosmetic and wood care when the gear is up there, but we're not going to do that in the winter time when the boat's tied up.
Right.
So we take it down, and we have the ability to take it down and move it. And so it's just the routine. It's not odd, it's not different, it's just good seamanship related to preparing from season to season. So if we were to sail year round, and this vessel has done that, and sometimes our missions require that, we can manage the maintenance. But when we're not sailing and we're going to stay tied up for 3 or 4 months in the wintertime, we take it all apart, and we have and that process, it helps us with inspection.
Right.
The putting it back together again is taking notes from the fall when we take it down, and applying those notes and observations as we put things together again. And then and nothing has to be brand new to start with. Things get used from season to season. They get checked all the time. We can do a change out of something that is getting ready to change in the middle of the season. We don't have to do it only in the springtime. So there's a fair amount of record keeping that goes on. We got rig inspection that we do on a regular basis. Of course, the engine room. Of course, the general cosmetic. And then when it's voyage preparation, getting underway preparation, we stock the boat up for 12 and sometimes 18 or 19. Sometimes it's for a few days, sometimes it's for several months.
Right.
So, yeah.
Lots of good progress, though, by the look of it.
Yeah, next week we're going to be getting a bit of rain pretty much every day starting Monday. So we can continue working, we just can't do a lot of cosmetics.
Right.
And then next Friday, the 19th, we're going to join a virtual commemoration of Maryland Day.
Yep.
But we're going to physically go down to Annapolis to join this virtual commemoration of Maryland Day. And so we'll be tying up in Annapolis on view. Nobody coming aboard, just on view. We'll have our history display ashore, and we'll have the ability to communicate with question and answers across the rail. You notice that we'll be tied to the dock. There'll be distancing. Crew can talk to folks on the dock.
Right.
We'll be doing that this next weekend. So
cool. I'm going to do this little plug. My phone's about to die.
Okay.
Which may cut us short here, but we've also got this other Facebook Live event coming up here on Tuesday on the 16th at 6:30 p.m. That's going to be with Chairperson Delegate Maggie McIntosh, Chairman of the Board Jason Williams, and our Executive Director Jeff Buchheit, going over the 2021 season schedule, as well as some exciting partnerships that we're involved with. It's with the National Park Service, the Star Spangled Banner National Historic Trail, and amongst other things that we'll have going on. So we're hoping people will tune in then as well. Again, that's Tuesday here on Facebook Live again at 6:30 for some exciting updates for what our season's going to look like.
For those of you who want to be certain, it's 1830.
There you go.
Oh, okay, so thank you for joining us, and as always, remain diligent.